Joined now by the code, Colby Carter, former CCW international champion, soon to be CCW heavyweight champion, coming up this Friday. Mr. Carter, how are we, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on, Chris. Honored to be on, man. Good, ready to sit down and talk as much wrestling as possible, So
No, absolutely, man. That's what we do here on Squared Circle Radio. We talk wrestling. If this is your first time listening, if you are listening, if you're tuning in because of Colby, thank you so much for doing that. We hope you stick around. You like and subscribe and do all those things. We would appreciate it. I know he's got a huge fan base here in Tennessee. You're the hometown boy. I've seen you several times performing in Tennessee. What is it like? I know I asked you this last time we were together at the Music City Fight Night show. What's it like, man, walking out in front of a crowd? So many people that you know, people you grew up with. It's all supporting Colby Carter. What's that like?
man, I can't even put it into words, right? Like there's people that are spending their hard-earned money and their time and their effort to get there to come watch me chase this wild dream, right? To be able to walk into a room and I'm seeing faces of people that I saw earlier in the day at the gym. I haven't seen in years since high school or in college. It's just unbelievable, man. I don't know a better word to describe it, but it's very rewarding. Kind of makes you think like maybe I've been doing things right the last few years of my life, because all these people are coming out of the woodwork to support it. Just means the absolute world to me, man.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And you've had such a long journey to get here. You've only been in the business for 2 years, and man, taking Middle Tennessee and beyond by storm. I've seen you wrestle several times, so fluid in the ring, so smooth with what you do. You have such a natural ability and a natural charisma. And I'm not blowing smoke just because you're sitting right here with me and we're talking.
I appreciate that.
It's really, really impressive what you've been able to do approaching your second year in the business. You recently wrestled Jay Lethal at an event in the Nashville area. You've competed on AEW Dynamite. You've done some stuff with the NWA, but this Friday night, the Battle of Nashville, you and QT Marshall, the guy who's really been a mentor for you in this business, but he holds the gold that you want. That is this Friday at the Texas Troubadour Theater. If you're in the Nashville area and you don't have your tickets yet, you can get them at ccwrestlingfl.com, or you can come to the door, buy them right at the door. But we want you here. We want you supporting Colby. It's going to be a fun night, a one-night tournament for the Tennessee Heavyweight Championship. And then, of course, headlined by you, man. So your story is so cool that you showed up at QT Marshall's seminar. That's the word. At CCW several years ago. You'd never taken a bump in your life. You told this story on our buddy Tyler Peters podcast, just about how QT really took you aside and really just broke everything down for you. Now, 2 years later, you're about to main event a humongous show in Nashville with that guy. What is that like, being able to get into the ring with QT Marshall?
Man, it's unreal. I mean, I keep using the same words, I feel like, but it feels like, you mentioned the Jay Lethal thing. I met him a while ago at the wrestling school and we rolled, and now here we are 2 years later. I had my match with Jay Lethal. And now we're 2 years later to when I met QT. And like you said, I've never even been in a ring before. I go to
Yeah.
the seminar and I'm the only one there that's never done it before. He has everyone raise their hand. Who's been here and who's been working less than 4 years? Maybe two guys raise their hand. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I don't even know how to get in the ring properly. Oh, I have to wipe my feet when I get in? I didn't know this. So I'm just learning things on the fly. And he, like I said, he pulled me aside and really took, like you said, took me under his wing and, ran me through the real basics. And he kept apologizing because, guys like me, as far as not being in the ring, don't go to those seminars typically.
Right.
But Nelio, who owns CCW, said, "Hey, it's for any levels are welcome. I want you to be here." So I went, and so he paired everyone off in twos, so they all had 5-minute matches. So, and I'm talking about when you critique a match, that man, to every step they took, to every headlock they took, why did you do this? Why did you do this? I had this written in my notes, and then he would pause, like, why did I write that? Oh yeah, I didn't like how this was done, and like just so much knowledge. I remember they were going through it, and I looked over at him. I said, "Hey, do you mind if I sit next to you? If I can't get in the ring, I'm at least going to pick his brain the best I possibly could." Because who else? I mean, what better to learn from than a guy that's a VP of a company that's on TV 3 nights a week? You know.
Yep, that's
So
exactly
picking his brain, and then he's the one that led me to the school with Jerry Lynn and Tom Latimer that I went to, and Jake Dumas, who also works for NWA. Those guys, and Jerry Lynn, of course, and those guys really have been my mentors through all of this, along with QT. And QT would check in on me every now and then. Well, then he had a second seminar come around, and I was probably, I think, 6 months into the school. I said, you know what, I'm going to go again. I'm not going to get signed, right? But I want to go and just. I remember we were doing a heat drill, which is when the heel is on top, right? Doing a heat drill, punches, kicks, strikes, whatever. And he said he didn't want to see anything crazy. And I think his name's Aaron Solo, was also a AEW guy.
Mhm.
And I'm giving heat, and I look up and I see QT like lean over and say something to Aaron, and I'm like, oh man, I'm screwing this up. I'm screwing this up. So I'm doing something wrong, right?
Yeah,
So the timer goes off, and I said, I saw you talking to Aaron. He said, I was telling him I couldn't believe how far you've already came in 6 months.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, I thought this was going to go the other way. So like,
Right.
great that it's going to go this way, right? It's like, okay. So he was the first one to really give me that confidence that like maybe I could do this, right? And then the
Yeah.
6 month check in, right? Hey man, you've gotten really good really quick, which I give all the credit to Jerry Lynn and Tom and Jake Dumas. That's really taken their time on me at the school to get me to where I was. And then, yeah, here we are 2 years almost. It's a year from my first match ever
Mhm.
and 2 years from when I first met QT and all of this all started. So it's crazy. Like all these full circle things just keep happening. And, if you listen to my podcast or my podcast with Tyler, I kept talking about how things lined up. And it seemed like I was supposed to do this. And, it seems so cliche, right? The school's right down the road from my house. QT leads me to this school. I meet Tom. I'm the only one there that's never been in the school. Again, I'm in the same situation again, right? Well, he
Yep.
takes me under his wing, and so does Jake, so does Jerry, and going through all of that, and now here we are 2 years later, and like you said, I'm headlining the biggest show in Nashville with QT against QT
Yep.
for CCW's heavyweight champion. I'm still like just blown away. I'm still like, it's still surreal to me. It's very surreal to me.
Well, I think too, again, you're 2 years into this. I think that speaks to your hard work and your ability, not just in the ring, but who you are as a person and what is instilled in you. And then being able to pick this up as quickly as you have, and just your drive and determination to want to get better. And I think that that's what separates wrestlers from really good wrestlers who are so fluid in the ring. It's the desire to get better. Some people are going to rely on their natural athleticism, which you could easily do. You're a college athlete. You're a body guy, you could rely on that, but instead you rely on your hard work and all of these things getting you to where you are. You've earned your spot, man. I mean, 2 years into the business, it's a fantastic spot to be in. I know you don't like for me to sit here and put you over, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, I really appreciate that. And like I said, I have to credit my coaches and my mentors that took the time with me. We'd have school, the class would start at 7 o'clock and it would end at 9:30. And we got to where Tom Latimer would call me and say, hey, meet me there at 5. I would roll with him from 5 to 7. I would stay
Mhm.
for practice from 7 to 9:30. I get home at 10:30 or so, wind down, and I get up for work at 3:30 the next morning. I mean, that first year was really hard on me because I knew I was missing a lot of stuff at home. But and that's another part of it. Like, if I'm going to miss that much time with my family, like I'm going to be good at it. I'm
Exactly.
going to at least work on it. I'm going to
Yep.
give it the best I got because I only got one shot at it. You know what I mean? And that's just, and again, I have to credit all my coaches and all that for taking the time with me because they saw something in me from the very beginning that I don't know if I saw myself. So I owe them everything.
Well, I'm gonna test you on that, because on the episode that you recorded with Tyler, you talked about always wanting to get into wrestling, always feeling like watching it and be like, "Hey, man, I could do that. Hey, man, I could do that."
I was
And
so
then
naive.
right, right. Well, you had a friend that pushed you a little bit and was like, "Hey, you need to do this." But at this age, only 2 years in, and you've lived life well before what you're doing right now. Besides that friend, was there something in particular that gave you the confidence to be like, yes, I'm going to do this. Now is the time for me to do this. Before the seminar or anything like that, was there something that clicked with you that's like, yeah, this is the time to do it right now?
So I'm going to shorten this story a little bit. So I've been in the gym culture my whole life, being a trainer, running a gym, whatever. The last gym I was at, that was in Hendersonville. I'm still at F45, but I'm in Gallatin now.
There you go.
Um, so
Cheap plug.
shameless plug, right? Yeah, yeah. So I was at a different location, and the owner, the people that I worked for, I didn't get along with them very well, and I poured my heart and my soul into that studio. And they were from out of state, so they didn't really see a lot of that. So and we had our differences, and it was just a point in time where, okay, I'm not happy here. What do? I go work at another gym? Well, then, like,
Mhm.
I'm stuck in the same boat in a few years, maybe, because the couple of last few people I worked for, it was just really hard to work for. I had a buddy of mine who was like, "You pick the worst people to work for." But like, because I'm giving whatever I do. Same with the wrestling stuff. Whatever I do, I'm giving it my all. I'm using all my resources to help. I want this to grow. I want it to be successful. Um, but there was a moment when I kind of was in limbo. Like, I don't know what I want to do with job wise. I don't
Yep.
want to go work at a big box gym. I've already done the personal training on my own. I didn't make enough money, but I love doing that. So I still want to be able to help people. And then that kind of was like, maybe I should try this wrestling thing. Like, again, we went to when we always go to all the WWE shows, AEW shows, CCW shows when they're in town. We go to all of those, man, and I just keep watching. And you know how it is after years and years, you keep hearing the same thing. You kind of start to believe that, whether it be true or false, right?
Yep.
And my buddies, man, you should do this. And then my wife, even, "Hey, you could do that. Again, totally naive of me to think I can do some of this stuff, but
Right.
but you keep hearing it year after year after year, and you start thinking like, maybe I can. And then those wheels started turning, right? And then that's when the seminar happened. And then we go to SmackDown as in Bridgestone. I stopped by the school. That's where I met Tom. And then just one thing after another. And once I started the school, there was a certain moment, and Tom probably will never remember this. It was a spot that we were running. Nothing crazy. Nowadays, I'd be like, oh, yeah, piece of cake, right? But when I first started, I was a nervous wreck. And I looked over at Tom, and he was sitting outside the ring watching, and he could tell on my face, like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm a nervous wreck. And he
Mhm.
just gave a look at me, looked right at me, looked me right in the eyes, and just gave a head nod, like, you've got this. You know what I mean? Didn't say a word.
Yep.
But that moment for me, that's it. I can do that. And I just, again, he'll probably never forget that. He's probably told me 100 million things that I do wrong and good. But
Right.
that one moment for me was like, and that was really early in the school where it's like, I'm still trying to find my footing. I'm still trying to figure out if I can even do this at this age. Um, and yeah, like that was hearing that over years and years, and having Tom give me that one stern look at practice that one day, it was like, okay. And we were doing a suplex. I remember I think it might have been a week later, snap suplex. First time I did one, gave a guy a snap, and I sit up and look at Tom, and Tom's looking at Jake, and Jake's looking at Tom like that was his first one. It was perfect. You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I see what's going on here. I think. And then it just kept continuing from that. But yeah, just years after hearing it, man, I was like, I'm tired of thinking, what if? Like what if, man? Like what if I would have tried that? What if I could have maybe
Mhm.
got on TV once or twice, and that just kept eating away at me for years and years and years. Finally, I'm just
And you
trying to kick the door in.
and 6 months into your career, you did get on TV. You were on AEW Dynamite at Bridgestone Arena 6 months into your career, man. Um, what was that experience like? Just like I don't I know I asked you earlier, like what are these things like, but just being 6 months into the business and you're walking in and you told the story on Tyler's podcast about how you didn't know what you were doing. And the day went on, and it was like, oh, you're going to be on TV. And you're like, wait, what? Like how blessed are you to have found that spot? You know what I mean?
Dude, I say it all the time. Like, I don't deserve a lot of the things I get, but I'm gonna make sure like I make the most of them, right? Like that. I told Tyler, like I showed up to the venue. 1 o'clock was the call time, I think. Yeah, I probably had to do some security. We're having like a. That's when Jeff Jarrett was having It was a Texas Chainsaw
Texas
Massacre
Chainsaw
match.
Massacre match. Yep.
Because
Yep.
that was here, right? It wasn't in Memphis.
Yeah,
Because
that
I
was
did
here.
Memphis with them too. It was here. And I remember
That
they're like,
was
well, the Lexus Lounge, you probably need some guys, extra security in case it gets a little crazy around the crowd. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. So they give us the briefing, and it's like, do whatever you want. Don't fanboy back here, right? But, get your food, whatever. Food. We talked about this earlier. Food. I'm gonna go get some
That's right.
food. So I go to catering, and I'm saying, hey, how are you? Like meeting all these people, and one of the other extras comes up to me and he says, hey, you're Colby, right? Yeah, this is cool. How do you know who I am? And he said, Captain Sean Dean's looking for you. Like, did I do something wrong? Am I not supposed to eat right? You said food. I'm okay, right? And they're like, no, I think we're going to use you on Dynamite. Immediate, like, heart sink, like, excited, but also, what did you just say to me? I'm going to be on TV. Oh my God. Again, I'm 6 months in, dude. I'm about to have a heart attack.
Right.
So go find Sean. Yeah, I think we're going to use you for a tag team spot. Go find House of Black. The guys I watch on TV every week. Okay. I know who they are. I'm sure I can point them out, right? I can go find them. Go find the acclaimed. Go find the acclaimed. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm in the same sentence with these two tag teams. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm 6 months in, man. I don't even know if I have my wrist tape with me. You know what I mean? Like, and so we planned that out. Again, it's very simple. And I remember I was sitting in the seats 4 hours before the show started, and my hands were like this the whole time, just shaking. Like, I could not. I was almost having a panic attack. I could not control what was going on. I'm shaking in my seat. I'm trying to text people. I'm like, nervous wreck, man. Like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then as the day went on, I'm getting a little less nervous, right? And then they preloaded us in the ring, right? I mean, crazy. I didn't get an entrance at 6 months in on AEW live TV,
Oh,
but
who do we need to call to fix that? Right?
I text Jerry. He's like, "Hey man, I can't get an entrance here, man. Come on, man." So they preloaded me and Chico Adams in. Love Chico Adams, by the way. He's a big name in Florida. He's been on my TV more than half the wrestlers I feel like I follow,
Mhm.
so they preload us in, and I remember walking. As soon as I walked through that curtain, all the nerves went away. I
Yeah.
was a nervous wreck, and I walked in there, started looking around, and I was like, this is really cool. This is what I want. You know what I mean? And my
Yeah.
wife asked me, and it's again another cliche thing. She said, how'd that feel being out there in that big of an arena? And I told her, I said, it felt like I was supposed to be there. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't nervous. I was more nervous before. I was a nervous wreck beforehand. But
Yeah.
getting out there and looking around, and I heard one of my best friends was sitting in the front row, and I heard him yell my name. And I looked up and pointed at him. Some other kid in the crowd yelled, "Colby Carter!" Again, I've had like 2 matches, so he had to be at one of my matches. A couple of the guys from the school were a couple rows back, and I heard them yelling my name, and it's like, this is nuts, man.
Yeah.
Like, this is just incredible, and again, not deserving of that whatsoever, but so thankful for that and for that experience, man. It was so cool, and try not to be a fanboy backstage was kind of tough too when you see Jeff Hardy and Sting walk by you.
Yeah. I Sting's one of my all-time favorites. I probably would have fanboyed out
Yeah,
myself.
it's it's hard not to, man. You're not supposed to. I get it. We are peers at this point in time, but
Yep.
like, hey, man, it's freaking Sting, dude.
Exactly. But I mean, that speaks to who you are as, everybody talks all the time about anybody that's in the wrestling business started out as a wrestling fan. And you're
Of
no
course,
different because that's how the majority of the people get into business. Now there are some stories a little more now where it's athlete just transition. They've never even watched wrestling, but here they are. But most people get in because they are fans, and you are no different. So let's take us back. What are your earliest memories of watching wrestling? What are some things that you can think of that might not be the first time you saw it on TV, but it was like, man, what is this? I'm glued to this every single time it's on my television.
man. You have to go all the way back to like the Monday Night Wars. That was
Yes.
like prime. You'd been watching it a little bit right beforehand, and then leading up to the Monday Night Wars, when you are just captivated in every single night on like what's transpiring, what's going to happen. And now you look at it like how out of pocket they're going to be on the microphone. some
Right.
of the stuff they said, but um, that was probably the earliest because I'd go over to a buddy's house. You know, back in the day, you had to flip back and forth. Probably showing my age
Yes.
here. You had to flip back and forth in the channels, right? And we were probably way too young to be watching that and DX and crotch chopping each other across the across the living room. But man, those
My
were
parents finally just went, hey, you're not watching that one anymore. I'm like,
right.
come on.
Dude, I remember we had a birthday party over at my buddy's house, and one of the parents came upstairs, and we're all there's probably eight, I don't know, however young we were, just all just standing around, just crotch chopping each other, you know. And the dad walks up there and was like, "If I see one more crotch chop, we're leaving." And I remember just like, so that was like the earliest memory that I can remember where it's like, "Oh my god, this is a huge deal going on here." You know, like
Yeah.
I'm glued. Oh my god, Sting's coming out of the rafters. Are you kidding me? And Hollywood Hulk Hogan, what happened? He used to be good guy Hogan, you know? And then obviously DX and all that going on was just it was just so entertaining, man. I love me a good storyline. So and
Yep.
those factions were just fantastic to be around.
Were you more of a WCW or WWF guy?
Man, I don't know. I think the NWO was the coolest thing of all time. I mean, like that was
I agree.
I
I agree.
I'm a big black and white guy. Like my all my like a lot of my clothes just black and white. Like so the black and white entrance. Maybe that's why I wear black and white all the time. I don't know, but it makes more sense now, right? But
Yeah.
so NWO was the coolest thing ever. It kind of got out of pocket, like when you had like the red and black, the black and white was okay, but then you had 50 members or swapping back and forth. It just got messy, right? But at the very
Yes.
beginning, you had Sting as the biggest anti-hero ever. Same with Stone. But then you had Stone Cold on the other side, the other big anti-hero with DX and The Rock. And, you know, some of my favorite wrestlers were on the WWE, WF side. So
Yeah.
I liked the ideas the WCW was doing for a while, but as far as the wrestlers themselves, big time WWF, WWE guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've always said that the stories, especially in the Attitude Era, were way more interesting in WCW.
Yeah.
But the in-ring product, I mean, it's WWF hands down. My whole thing with Sting, I mean, he's my probably my number 2 favorite all time behind Shawn Michaels, and that'll never change. But
Mm,
what I've
mm,
always said about Sting is I feel like that Sting doesn't get the credit that he deserves for what he was able to do in the ring because of the competition that he had and the hand
right.
that he was dealt. He never got to wrestle Shawn. He never got to wrestle Rock. He never got to wrestle Taker. He got to wrestle Brett, but it was Brett was a
Right.
little bitter at that point, you know? So if Sting would have gotten in the ring with some of these other guys, maybe he's looked at a little more prominently like a Shawn Michaels or whatever. Do you get that at all?
Oh, I totally agree with that. And, you know, we have all those dream matchups we want, right? And you can't tell me Sting wrestling Shawn Michaels would have been the same as Sting wrestling Buff Bagwell. Shout out
Right.
Buff Bagwell. But or Scott Steiner, you know, like all those top guys, like because you know they went the route of getting a lot of the older guys that were kind of at the tail end. Well, we thought Hogan was at his tail end, but he just looked like he was at his tail end at that point. But you know, like I mean, someone showed me something where Roman Reigns is the same age now that Hogan was when he started NWO.
Mhm.
That blows my mind. Roman still looks great. I mean, Hogan looked great, but I guess it was the skullet that he had was just, I don't
Right.
know, it just made him look. But that blows my mind. But yeah, you can't tell me like the in ring product, like Sting wrestling The Rock. Take like you named all those guys. I would have loved to watch Sting wrestle those guys. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, like vice versa, there was a lot of mixed matches that you could have put together there. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, though. Sting would have never got his credit, man, because he'd hit a guy with a bat, front hand, backhand, stinger splash, scorpion death drop, game over, right? It's like, man, like they didn't really give him a lot of time in those matches, but it could have been who he was working with, you know. So it is
Yeah.
what it is. But
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't wrestle a single match for like 16 months or whatever it was, but he made the most money I'm sure that he ever made in his career just by hanging out in the rafters and
just showing
showing up
up.
a month. Yeah, that's all he had to do. And it was the
That's a,
coolest storyline that anybody could ever do. And everybody that listens to this podcast and my co-host Andy like to pick at me because my die on the hill moment is Starcade 97. And if you get me talking about Starcade 97, we're going to be here for a long time. So I'm going to do everybody a favor. I'm just not going to bring it up. I'm just not going to do it. What I will say is something that you said a couple of times I want to go back to. You're a fan of stories, and big wrestling fans are always fans of just the best stories. Aside from the NWO, what are some of your stories in wrestling that you go back to that you think of so fondly that maybe helped inspire you to get into the business?
Yeah, like you said, the NWO, the DX, all that stuff, right? But growing up watching Triple H and The Rock, Triple H, Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, how they used to not like each other, right? But they were best friends, so their in-ring chemistry was always off the freaking charts, right? Um, and like watching those guys, and obviously now the Bloodline the last few years. Oh, brother! I mean, like it's must see TV. Again, we got Roman just showing up. We got to
Yep.
watch, right? And
Yep.
with the Polynesian descent, like let's right, it's in the bloodline, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm obviously a little biased towards that storyline, but
Hey, listen, we'll
um,
make a call. We'll make sure that you listen. Solo Sokoa, Tonga Loa, Tama Tonga, Colby Carter. That's it right there. Let's go.
man, I mean, I'm all for it. Like me and Solo are boys anyway, so that'd be great. So,
Oh, that's great.
um, but yeah, so like the storyline always drives the match. I feel like I would remember more of a story than a match, right? 5-star matches are cool, don't get me wrong, but if there's a
Sure.
story behind it, you could do half as much really and make it a 5-star. You know what I mean? The story is what drives the machine. You can have
Yep.
all these random one-off 5-star matches. It's great, but there's no story to it. Then like, why are we bleeding every match? You know what I mean? So,
You
but
mentioned
it's
you mentioned some of the current stuff that's going on, man, and you talked about growing up in the Monday Night Wars and just really being captivated by that. And the current product nowadays, the wrestling landscape is heavily compared to the Attitude Era and that Monday Night War era, just for all the attendance records they're breaking and merch and viewership and yada yada yada, all those things. Man, I'm not asking you to say is this era better than that one, but when you put the two side by side, like what is your thoughts on everybody saying that this is either better than or at least the next best thing?
I mean, I think it's very similar. They're making more money than ever because different revenue streams, right? With the social
Yes.
media and all that. And wrestlers have it's easier to access the wrestlers via Twitter. Drew McIntyre tweets during a match and it blows up, right? And
Right.
I mean but that adds to the storyline. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more avenues that they can go. Um, but I mean, if you told me now that it was as good as it was back then, that's tough, man. The top end story, I wouldn't say you're wrong.
Right.
The Bloodline, the NWO, the DX, all that stuff. I think Bloodline holds its torch right there.
Yep.
Now, and I think talent wise, there's much more talented athletes that are on the roster now for the mid card.
Mhm.
And they don't get lost like they used to. There was a period in WWE. I feel like if you weren't the top guy, you just kind of got lost in the shuffle for a while.
Yep.
And I feel like with Paul Trips, or you want to call him, I think with him in charge, they've done a really good job of making like the Intercontinental Championship a big deal. Like
Yep.
Gunther had it for 666 days. Yikes! But he had it for
Me too.
yeah, yikes. But like every belt makes it feel like it's a big deal, and
Yep.
I think that's so important because everyone's going to watch the main event of WrestleMania, everyone. But if you can sell me on the stories on all the other matches too, I'm even more engaged in the show, whether it be WrestleMania, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever it is. And AEW is the same way. You get a guy like Omega going against Okada or Will Ospreay, dude, I'm so in. But give me a story behind it too, and I'm even more bought in.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. The story is absolutely what drives everything. Like you said, you can have all the 5-star matches you want. I'll hold Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 up against anything that has ever existed. That's my all time favorite match, and nobody can convince me otherwise. But it's the story behind that. It's Shawn trying to beat the streak. It's the Shawn coming down from the sky and the Undertaker coming up from the stage. And, just the contrast of those things. It just, oh, and they're two legends and they had never had that spot. So, it just writes itself. And you mentioned Shawn and Triple H, man, like Ruthless Aggression era stuff when Sean came back, just like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
good, man. I can just watch that stuff
And
all day long.
and Sean was my all-time favorite also.
Oh,
I mean,
this is why we get
there's not
along.
even
This is why we get
there's
along.
there and I love The Rock, don't get me wrong. He was
Mhm.
on another stratosphere, same with Stone Cold. But
Yeah,
Sean, man, get him in the ring and he can wrestle anybody. He can wrestle anything. He could oversell Hulk Hogan. He could, you know what I mean? Like, he could, that was one of my all time favorite clips and matches and
yeah,
watching. But he just was so good at everything. And I really relate to him because I'm not the biggest guy in the world.
yeah.
Like you mentioned, I'm a body guy. Like, I appreciate that. Like, Sean was too. He was just a smaller frame like me. Like, I'm not your 6'4" freak athlete, And
Sure.
so I always related to like whatever he does, I think I could do. Now, he is a salesman and the best wrestler of all time, in ring performer in my eyes.
Yes.
Um, but he does a lot of things that I'm thinking, maybe I could mimic a lot of my stuff after him. I had
Yep.
this dream when I was a younger kid from Nashville, Tennessee, right? The sweet chin music as a finish writes itself. And I hate that everyone uses it now, or the thrust kick, whatever you want to call it, because
Yep.
I don't get to do that anymore. So, but I was like, it's a tip of the cap to Sean. Nashville's a music city, right? Sweet chin music. Oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. And
Yep.
then now it's just a transitional move. I gotta figure something else out.
Hey,
So,
listen, this coming Friday at Battle of Nashville against QT Marshall, can you at least just try to tune up the band one time and see what happens?
brother,
The
I'll
people,
tune it up.
listen,
I'll,
tune it
I'll
up. The
tune it
people
up.
are going to get behind you. You know they will. It'll be
I'll
great.
I'll, t- I'll tune it up. I pulled it out at one of the shows locally a while ago, and got a couple pops just for stomping the foot, getting ready. You know what I mean? So
That's amazing.
I'll see if I can pick my moment right. I'll tune up the band one time for you. I better get a pop from you if you see it.
Yes. Oh,
So,
you're good. Oh, listen, you will hear because if I'm doing commentary up in the crow's nest, I'll yell out there. Everybody will hear me. It'll be great. You'll pop
that's
for
a
sure.
that's a deal. If I get him down for a second, I'll start tuning up the band and we'll go from there. So
Yes, let's go. I'll dig. That'd be great. Colby Carter, man, I appreciate you so much being on the show. I got one more question for you, and it might be a curveball for you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. I opened this interview talking about how you're the hometown hero. All these places that you've gone to in Middle Tennessee, the people are just behind you. You see people, you've had incredible matches. Chase Stevens, Beast Man, Toby Farley, just to name a few, Damian Wayne in your debut match, all of those kind of things. You've been able to draw good houses, but that's Colby Carter as a baby face.
oh.
Have you thought about what a heel Colby Carter might look like?
You want my real answer here? I
I
I
want
think
the
about it.
answer. I want the
I
answer
think
you
about
want
it.
to give.
I think about it every day. I
Mm,
do.
I
I
love it.
do. Every time I get screwed out of winning a match, lose my title, I get cheated out of it. I have a match at the wrestling school, get cheated out of it. And
Mm,
like I said earlier, man, you keep hearing those things over and over and over again. You start to believe them a little bit. So I have nothing but support from the people that are here, and I
yep.
want to give them a good show. But I'd be lying if I haven't told you I haven't thought about it. So at some point in time, you reach that breaking point. I'm not there yet. I'm not anywhere near there yet. But I've definitely thought about it, and I think it would be a lot of fun. I'll say that. So
Well, listen, we talked about Shawn Michaels a whole lot on this podcast. 1996, he was on top of the world, man. He was
yep,
he was the world champ, and he was having matches with the British Bulldog and Vader and Diesel and all these guys, but he was the most unhappy that he's ever been. And I'm not saying that
yep,
you're unhappy right now,
sure,
but Shawn was the smiling baby face of the company. And then at some point, Shawn broke and
yep.
Shawn just went sideways. So it happens to the best of you. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I mean, I told you Sean was my favorite for a reason, right? I don't ever want to lose my smile. Don't get me wrong. I don't ever want to do that. But yeah, at some point in time he broke, man. And
Oh, man.
going to happen, man. You know, I love what I'm doing now. And if I can entertain in a different way, and if I need to take a different route to become more successful, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think that's great. I just think that, the ultimate babyface can always be the ultimate heel. We saw it with Hulk Hogan. We talked about it,
Yep.
the NWO, say your prayers and train and vitamins and the whole 9 yards, and you fans can stick it, brother. And there it was.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it happens, but yeah, I want to throw that out at you because it's just that's in listening to your interview with Tyler and all the times that you and I've talked, I'm like, man, I bet a heel Colby Carter would just be a lot of fun. I just, what your thoughts have been on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think about it all the time, man. And I cut a promo, and my buddy Connor Casey was there next to me, and it was just your typical babyface promo, and he was, that'll work. I think you were recording it actually,
Yeah.
and I said, was that okay? And you're like, it's okay, it'll work. And then you walked off, and Connor goes, you just want to be a heel so bad. And I was like, I don't. It's just maybe it's more natural to me. I don't know. We're talking about fighting here, man. We're not talking about having a football game. It's a little different. You know what I mean? So sometimes I used to have a really bad temper when I was little, and it doesn't come out very often. But sometimes it wants to come out. Sometimes, so maybe I'll let it out sometime. We'll see.
There we go. Listen, every babyface got to have a little bit of edge to them. It's fine.
Absolutely.
That's no problem. The fans are still going to support you. We're going to support you this coming Friday, Battle of Nashville, CCW. I'm going to throw the graphic back up here one more time in case you guys haven't seen it. ccwrestlingfl.com is where you can get your tickets, or you can just buy them at the door. That's this Friday, May 17th at the Texas Troubadour Theater over by the Opry Mills Mall, Opryland Hotel. If you're familiar with the Nashville area, come out and see it. Colby Carter versus QT Marshall, the main event for the CCW Heavyweight Championship. But again, an 8-man, one-night tournament to crown the first Tennessee Heavyweight Champion. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, an action-packed show. CCW shows always are, but the star of the show, Mr. Colby Carter. You can follow him at the Colby Carter on Twitter and Instagram. He is our guest on the show today, man. I can't thank you enough for hanging out with us. I appreciate it.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. I'm glad we got to do this, and I'm excited for Friday. If you order your tickets online, use discount code Colby and save a little bit of cash so you can come watch us.
There you go. There's a Squared Soccer Radio exclusive for you. All of our listeners, use that code Colby. You'll get yourself some discounted tickets. We'd appreciate it. And then come say hi to me. I'll be there. Come say hi to Colby. Of course, he will be there. Just let us know that you're checking out the show. We would appreciate it. Colby, again, thank you, man. I appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks for having me on. I love this.